Welcome to our second video in our four-part series on habits. In this video, we're going to look at how a habit develops in our brain and answer the question everybody wants to know: how long does it take to develop a habit? Hello, Mira Binzen here, author and co-founder of Global Family Wellness with my mom and sister. We're here to empower you to live a life of total well-being. Habits are a big part of this, so let's dive in. First of all, let's talk about your incredibly awesome brain. Our brains weigh about 2% of our total body weight, and yet the brain uses about 20% of our oxygen intake. That gives you an indication of how much brain power we need to do something. So as we learn something new, it takes an enormous amount of energy in our brain. It's like a gas-guzzling, high-powered super sports car, like a Ferrari, in the process of learning something new. And you recognize the challenge of learning something new. Like, remember when you learned to ride a bike or learn a new language or even learn to tie your shoe? It takes a lot of concentration and a lot of effort. Your brain wants to be energy efficient. It's super smart in so many ways. And so once you've learned something like driving a car or the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of habits we do every single day, once you learn it, then it's moved from the prefrontal cortex learning part of your brain over into the automation factory part of your brain. This part of your brain is super efficient. It's like an electric bicycle. And so it saves a lot of energy to run on automation, to run on habits. So we want to learn something and then put it on automation, and that's a habit. It's because these habits have moved to the automation part of your brain that we do things without thinking about it. This is why sometimes if you have a habit that isn't that great for you, it can be hard to change it because it's in that automation factory area of your brain. So we want to bring it out of automation and into our conscious awareness, into the thinking part of our brain, and make an informed decision about it. So in the last video, we talked about how a habit is a repeated behavior. It's most often triggered by an environmental cue, and it's not based on a conscious choice in the moment. Now, as we practice mindfulness and become more aware, which is what we're all about here in A to A land, we start to make more conscious choices about our habits. And that's what we're doing here. So if you haven't seen the last video, go back and watch that, where we show you how to track a habit you already have. Now in this video, we're going to talk about developing a new habit. You're going to use the same habit tracker. So if you made one for yourself, that's great. Or grab one that we've made for you below in the description. So with your habit tracker, you're going to pick a habit now, and you can keep tracking the habit that you already do. That's fine. And add a habit that you kind of do, but you don't do it as consistently as you'd like to, like say meditation. So you've meditated here and there, but you want to make it a daily habit because you understand that sitting still and quiet and training your mind to focus for just 2 minutes a day has an enormously positive impact on your well-being. This is a perfect example of tiny changes made slowly over time that has a huge, huge positive outcome in the long run. And hey, kids are developing habits all day, every day. So it's a great time to help kids develop life-affirming habits. So you're going to pick a habit that you want to do more consistently. Don't pick the hardest thing. Don't pick something like, I never ever have any physical activity and I'm going to start running 3 miles a day. That's like not at all sustainable. And we'll talk more about that in another video. So pick something that you kind of sort of already do so you know you can do it, and you want to make it into a habit, which means you're going to do it consistently enough, a repeated behavior, that it's going to move into the energy efficient part of your brain. So it runs like an electric bike, not like a gas-guzzling Ferrari. And so you're going to do the same thing with the last one. You're going to check a box each time you do the habit, and you're going to notice how you feel. This is a really important part of developing healthy habits, is to be aware of how you feel doing the habit, how you feel checking off the habit, and how you feel when you've had the success of doing habits repeatedly over time. Because kids are developing habits in their life anyways, it's way easier for kids to develop habits. I have a great story that illustrates this. There was an elder teacher walking through the forest with his student, and he directed his student to go pull a sprout from the ground. The student bent over and easily pulled a little sprout out of the ground. They continued walking along a forest path, and they came to a seedling that was a little bit bigger. It was 2 or 3 inches off the ground, and he directed the student to pull it up. And again, even though the roots had gone a little bit further into the ground, the student had no trouble pulling that sapling out of the ground. Then they continued down the forest path, and they came to a larger tree. This tree had been growing for several seasons, and the student was young and strong and healthy. And when the teacher asked him to pull it out, he struggled a little bit. He had to use a lot of effort, but he was able to pull that tree out of the ground. And finally, the student and his teacher approached a large oak tree. It was a beautiful, well-established tree in the forest, and the teacher turned to the student and said, "Pull up this tree." And the student looked at the teacher and said, "I can't pull this tree out. There's no way. It's too well established. Its roots are too firmly in the ground, spread out too far in the ground," right? So this is exactly what our habits are like. It's easier to stop a habit that's not life-affirming before it takes root in our life, and to let the habits that we do want in our life to keep growing and becoming like a mighty oak tree that really gives us a solid foundation of a positive habit in our life. So you can think about habits that aren't life-affirming as little sprouts, like little weeds. You want to pick them out before they start to get too well established in your life. Developing your own habits is a really cool term called self-directed neuroplasticity. That's a fancy way of saying you're training your brain to work the way you want it to. And it's so cool that we can make a conscious choice about that. So we're all about self-directed, and to be self-directed and to have self-directed neuroplasticity, which means you're creating the grooves in your brain that you want to create, we need to have awareness. So a lot of this is about paying attention. Notice how you feel. Notice what you're thinking about before you start a habit. Now, the habits are made so you don't have to think about it. So you want to like turn the light on in a room. You walk into a darkened room and you don't know what's going on in there. But when you turn the light on, you're like, oh, I can see there's a couch over there and there's a chair there, and I almost tripped over the stack of books right here. And so turning the light on, bringing more awareness into your life will help you make more empowered choices and that self-directed neuroplasticity, and make your brain work for you in the best way possible. Now, let's answer that very important question: how long does it take to develop a habit? Well, honestly, we don't know. It's very subjective. There's a couple different time lengths that you've probably heard of. One is 21 days. It takes 21 days to develop a habit. Well, that's kind of a cultural myth, and it has some basis, in fact. There was a big research study where they discovered that it took between 18 and 250 days to develop a habit. It has to do with how difficult the new habit is, as well as your own unique brain. So we don't know exactly when and how your brain shifts from the big high-powered engine learning part of your brain to the super energy efficient automation factory part of your brain, but it does happen. And if you stop that habit, it will slowly fade away. So to keep things going, and 21 days is a good amount of time to start a trend, to get the ball rolling, to start to hack your way through your neural jungle, making a path in your brain. And that's why our program, From Anxious to Awesome, an online journey for family, is 21 days. So every single day for 21 days, you're doing simple things that start to develop habits. And the cool thing is you can repeat that 21 days over and over again. And so how long it takes to develop a habit isn't clear, but what is clear is that consistently over time, your brain will figure it out, and you'll continue to pay attention so you can make empowered choices for your self-directed neuroplasticity. So pick your habit. Write it down on your habit tracker. Do that habit every day and check it off. Try to hit every single day without a break. If you'd like to, share in the comments and let us know the habit you're tracking. You might inspire somebody else. I want to do that habit as well. Please subscribe to our channel so you'll get the next video in the series of habits. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you know anyone in your life who wants their family to develop positive and healthy habits, please share this video with them. Thank you so much for being here. Have an awesome day.